Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. It's been an interesting week with Bitcoin basically finishing off the week where it started price-wise, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of action in between. Particularly early on in the week, we saw a lot of pain in altcoins, but it ended on a more positive note. So on this day in history, back in 2013, we have Germany recognizing Bitcoin as a form of money. In 2014, a year later to the day, Australia came out and said, we're not going to recognize Bitcoin as money. And on this week in 2016, it was when all the rumors started to surface after the Bitfinex hack about how they were going to bail in users. And I'll follow up the rest of that story again with you next week, as how that played out in real time was pretty unnerving as someone that had a fair bit of ETH on there trading at the time. And on this day last year, Bitcoin had just broken out and made a new record all-time high at $4,470. So time flies, guys. But let's jump in and have a look at what moved markets this week. And just quickly, I want to cover this story first because I was really hoping this would get a few more retweets and get out there. An Australian gentleman coming home back to Australia from an overseas flight got pulled aside. Authorities took all his digital devices off him, his phone, his laptop, made him put in his passwords, unlock everything. They copied all the data off his devices and they had them for over an hour. And he was a computer savvy guy. And when he got home, he realized that they had installed tracking software on there as well. So apparently this is all new legislation that was passed in Australia recently. This is now legal to do, no questions asked. Hand over everything and your data is now the government. So we live in the police state, guys. George Orwell's 1984, you know, it's here and it's now and it's scary. And whether you want to share this on Facebook or Twitter, I was really hoping that this makes some headlines around the world, really, because I think it's a bigger story than it got credit for. Into the crypto stories though, guys. So Binance, 90% of employees receiving salary in that BNB token, and Binance have also launched their Binance Academy during the week. Now, guys, I'm absolutely stoked here that they've got 14 videos and we had 3 chosen for their educational website. So it's just great when all that hard work you put into these videos that sometimes don't always get as many views as you would like. Hopefully Binance gets a lot of traffic and that helps grow the channel. So it's great to see. And obviously I put a lot of work into my exchange tokens to let you guys know which one I think is best, which ones pay the best rewards, and give you the best deals. So check that out as well if you haven't already. For those in Australia, we do have a deal where you get $10 free crypto if you put $100 into Huobi Australia, and 70% off trading fees as well. So another good exchange, really low fees, a lot of Aussie dollar coin pairs for you Australians as well. So check that out. The ASX, the Australian stock market, coming out and saying that distributed ledger technology such as blockchain is efficient. It's going to save us billions. And again, this isn't necessarily using, you know, Bitcoin or Ethereum, any big public blockchains, but it's just getting that out there, letting people know that this isn't a bubble. You know, this technology is groundbreaking. It is the future, and it's good to see the Australian government acknowledging this and moving forward. Another story here, so Uber's largest shareholder, SoftBank, denies any deals with Bitmain. Now, we covered the Bitmain IPO. There's been a lot of talk about how much Bitcoin Cash they own, and if that's a risk, if that's a good thing, if you're a believer in Bitcoin Cash. Interesting to watch this unfold because we're looking for these latest disruptor companies, you know, Uber, Airbnb, any of those start accepting crypto. It just really opens up that globe, and we've seen it in Australia already with tourism, with Travel by Bit doing the work they do. That cryptocurrencies are a great option for these global businesses. Now, last week we spoke a little bit about Turkey. This week, Iran's annual inflation is in the news, hitting 186%, and I sort of said that, look, this is more powerful than any Bitcoin ETF, what central banks are doing, monetary policy, and the war's not only between banks, but between governments and banks as well, guys. This is the big driving force in macroeconomics that has led to big rallies in the past in Bitcoin and will lead to them again. So Turkey joining Russia, liquidating more US Treasury bonds, you know, that's that theme that we're talking about. What's going to happen with interest rates around the globe? Keep an eye on all this as it unfolds. We're now just days away, so August 22nd this week marks the longest bull run in stock market history. Now, just keep that in mind. We're having a gentleman on the channel this week for you Australians that's going to make it very easy for you to put some of your super into Bitcoin if you want, with just a couple of clicks. So I know a lot of you have been asking me, look, how do I put 10% of my super into Bitcoin and just leave it for the next 20 years? So he's got a good deal for you guys, a good discount, and we're going to talk to him on the channel this week as well, because stock markets are getting long in the tooth. The other question we get, and in relation to that, is what happens if something happens to me? If I pass away, I lose my private keys, and that's a big question, particularly if you've got a bit of wealth now. So tomorrow night on the Nuggets News Facebook page, we're going to be doing a live AMA with an Australian project called Tenserum, and they're working on this key management protocol for basically backup plans. Giving multiple people access that can all sign in at once, or just what's the backup plan if something happens to protect your crypto. So tune in and have those questions ready for those guys tomorrow night as well. So this is the big end of the news stories here, guys. So 9 Bitcoin ETFs in the next 6 weeks. I've put the dates up there for you. It's funny that the first one is the day after that stock market, where the headlines will be, obviously record long bull market for the stock market, and probably this is going to fall by the wayside and not get a lot of attention. It's funny how these things always seem to play out that way. Either way, guys, I actually think that most of these are likely to get delayed or pushed back, just like we saw with the Solid XVAN one. They're going to push it back, buy themselves time. So pretty even split between who thinks this is going to get approved or not. But guys, it's coming sooner or later. Even if it's next year, we know it's coming. And that's the fantastic thing if you're thinking long term at these current price levels. And we had an exchange traded note. So slightly different to an exchange traded fund. But this has been around since 2015, I tweeted. But they've now made it a lot easier for US citizens to get exposure to crypto. And it trades at a lot less of a premium. It tracks the Bitcoin price a lot closer than a lot of these other products that are currently out there. And unlike futures, this does require people, the fund itself, holding some sort of Bitcoin. So the ETF is what we want, to hold a lot of Bitcoin, directly proportional to those shares. But this is a lot better for price than those futures, which is just a buyer and a seller on either side of the trade versus investing in these notes. Now, this is something that I want to talk about more, and it's the biggest headwind I see for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and cryptocurrency in general in the next 12 to 24 months, and I really don't see anyone talking about it. And that's why I want to do a special video about this, because there's a lot of people putting forward their comments and thoughts. That's great, but no one got the theme that I'm trying to get at here, and I won't give too much away because I want to make that detailed episode about it and cover it and keep you guys ahead of these macro trends before they play out, because this is going to be a hotly debated topic in the next 12 to 24 months, and I just don't think particularly governments are aware of this at all. Ethereum took a beating this week. Vitalik was on the charge with a 75 tweet long thread talking about making the move over to the proof of stake blockchain, so the hybrid first and then full proof of stake. Everything that he's learned, everything they've been working on since 2014. That was a very interesting read. The guy's an absolute genius. Just when you think, how can he come up with anything else creative, that how can all these other developers not have thought of anything yet? And then he comes out again with something else, a guide to 99% fault tolerance. So a way to can change the consensus mechanisms of how we trust blockchains, and allow for more and more bad actors, but to still reach the correct consensus. So again, this is game-changing stuff, and he is just a once-in-a-lifetime genius, I guess, and that's why I love Ethereum. So let's get into the price action, guys. Last week, Bitcoin was trading at around 6,300. We were looking for that panic, be mindful of one more leg down, and we were very mindful of the 14th of August as that key reversal date. And once again, our cycle brackets have called this to the day, and we've had a nice push up. So what do we have to be aware of now? Well, obviously a number of things. We got a strong rejection from the 200-day moving average here. So look, we've only just had this strong bounce, and I said that I'm looking for a bigger rally, a monster rally similar to what we saw back here is on the cards. And I just want to compare you with the shorts, and that's the main driver that we're looking for here. To see these Bitcoin shorts that got up to that record number, I did that video saying, look, if these burn, it's going to cause a rally. We got a bit of a jump, but this still hasn't unwound back to these levels where it started, 2 weeks ago. If that happens and we get a bit of good news and these shorts are forced to cover and buy back to close their positions, I think we can see that 20% rally that I was talking about the other night, right up into that 200-day moving average or thereabouts. Now that's a pretty healthy run. Altcoins, some of them went ballistic the other day, 20, 30, 40% runs once we had a bit of good sentiment return to the market. So a lot of people starting to, again, layer in dollar cost average because, yes, if we get all 9 of those ETFs delayed or rejected, it's probably going to cause panic, just like we saw. Markets got very panicky very quickly on that decision that it had just been pushed back, the Van Eck ETF. If all 9 get delayed, it's probably the perfect scenario of, the big Wall Street money being able to bully the market along with the whales, telling everyone that Bitcoin's dead because there's no ETFs, and that's all going to wrap up, around here, September 30. Maybe we drift sideways to lower, chop around, but we just don't. There's no reason for that fresh new retail investor money to come in until we have something really positive. So we know that backed exchange is on the horizon in November. So I certainly see before the end of the year we are going to have some sort of recovery rally. But in the meantime, we've got to be mindful that whales want to push this market around. Wall Street wants to accumulate at the lowest prices they can. They can build up their Bitcoin stocks for their investors, for their products at these low levels, and you guys have that advantage to accumulate now if you still have money on the sidelines. So yeah, use that to your advantage, guys. Look, sentiment was bad the other day. We saw some of the stuff that was coming out from CNBC futures. This rally was overdue because it was just painful for that 2-week period there, as you see. So we're waiting to see if we can form a higher low on the daily chart here, get through these moving averages, and we've got this time cycle. We've got till the end of August there to continue up before we cool off. So let's see how that plays out. But again, everyone's kind of hanging their hopes on these next ETF decisions as well. So have your game plan, control your emotions. There's been some great trades out there for people that were in control and knew that the market was going to be irrational. So onto Ethereum. Last week was trading at 325. Another really bad week. We saw those stories about all those ICOs having to sell off ETH. Now, that's definitely true to some extent, but don't forget that it works both ways. So already in 2018, there's been more money raised through ICOs than the whole of 2017. Now, I don't think anyone thinks that ICOs are going anywhere anytime soon. So there's going to be more regulation, but there's going to be more money coming in. And yes, there's other platforms that are going to raise money and do ICOs, but I still think ETH is going to be the leader. If you think ICOs are going to remain a part of the next 12 to 24 months of the crypto ecosystem, then there's going to be big demand for ETH, okay? So yes, a lot of these are panicking, having to lock in a bit of runway for their project. In some ways, they're a lot like retail investors, guys. They see that account dwindling, $10 million, it gets down to $5 million, and they just say, look, guys, we have to sell now. We should have sold high, but we have to sell now to lock in that $5 million and give our project a chance to succeed over the next 12 to 24 months. So yes, it did cause a lot of selling pressure. We did see a lot of buyers stepping in, and it recovered very quickly, guys, from 250 right back up here, over 300. And this is that level that we were talking about that had a lot of trading back here around 295, 285, 300. A lot of volume, a lot of sideways action back there as well. So interesting there for Ethereum. As I said, Vitalik's doing developments. I'm going to make a video about Plasma, Raiden, sharding, state channels. Funfair have got their Fate channel technology. So there's plenty of development going on there, guys, and that's what you've got to look at. Who's developing? Who's got working products? Litecoin was trading at around $60 last week. Another really poor performer. We did see buyers step in at that $50 psychological, nice round number. But for the time being, this one's just tracking Bitcoin, as I tend to say every week. When I do that episode about the big issues facing the cryptos, I'm going to talk about the important piece of the puzzle that Litecoin has to play and will continue to have to play to be that test bed for Bitcoin, and particularly even a second layer of sorts as well. So I don't think Litecoin's going anywhere. You know, Charlie Lee cops a bit of hate. I think it's good that he's the face of Litecoin and can build partnerships and get it out there as well. So look, I don't think Litecoin's dead, but it's certainly had a pretty rough time of it. And like a lot of coins, guys, some of these charts are starting to look absolute identical to the Wall Street cheat sheets. So I want to show you another coin that I've covered on the channel with fundamental analysis. I don't think I've got it on my watch list there. So that's Wabi. Now Wabi got to over $6. Don't worry about that first day. That's a bit of missed data there. So that Wabi got to over $6. It's now got this exact pattern we see, Wall Street cheat sheet, those 3 bounces. You know, it just volume dwindles. Everyone thinks it's dead. And if you zoom in, it got down to 12 cents and we saw some buyers, 11 cents even. And this is where it's really starting to get to risk to reward. If you know your coins well and you've got the fundamentals, and Wabi has had no bad announcements per se. It's just been a victim of the market, and all coins been highly correlated. Now, just these tiny little moves, you know, that's a 60% move off the lows there, even though it's a tiny little blimp. Now, these coins like Wabi that are down 97%, I think I worked it out. Now, if these get back to break even, guys, you know, you're talking 5,000% gains. Crazy stuff. So if you know what you're doing, if you know what you're looking for, and the fundamentals haven't changed of your favorite coins, if you've still got money on the sidelines, it's time to dollar cost average. Be prepared. If we do get that big flush and nothing's really changed and all these altcoins are bleeding even harder just because of the ETF news, you might be able to pick some of these coins up down 98 or 99%. And some people are saying, you know, what are they worth? How do you know they're still worth anything at that? So as I said, this article came out. Look for the ones that have working products and they've got good developments, building partnerships. But even something like Wabi now, guys, in terms of valuing a company or a platform, these aren't up in the hundreds of millions of dollars or $1 billion, as we see some of the top 20 coins that don't have working products yet in the billions. Something like Wabi's now only valued a market cap of 6, or it was down to 5 the other day, $5 million. So that to me is very reasonable. Members know what coins we're looking at to load up on our portfolios as well, guys. If you want to join that discussion about fundamentals that we have going on 24/7, but it's starting to get very attractive for some of these. In terms of coins being down, you know, 99%, your portfolio being down. Thank you for the kind messages we received for touching on depression and how it can affect you mentally. And a lot of people said it was like I was talking to them when I said you can become the trade and beat yourself up and want to get rich quick and get that money you lost back on the next trade, and that gets you in a worse position. So one of the people that reached out to me was Peter Bacharach, and he's written books. He got himself off medications. You guys know I'm a pharmacist, so we're going to have a great discussion this week about mental health, how this affects people. I'm really looking forward to opening up and chatting with Peter as well, so I hope you guys look forward to that. And we are heading to Sydney finally this week, guys, at the Innovation for Impact evening Thursday with Power Ledger, Horizon State, and Sharing as well. So check them out, guys. There's plenty happening in this space. It feels like we're so close to finishing off the year on a really good note, but we know the markets can be irrational and hang their hat on that ETF. The whales can push the markets around in the short term, but you guys know that I've never been more bullish long term. So dollar cost averaging, be sensible, pick those good coins, do your own research, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.